Dear students, so continuing with the learning behavior, the condition reflex or the CR type 1, that is the classical conditioning. That is, if you remember, we discussed the classical conditioning, which was with the help of Pavlov's experiment, in which the ringing of the bell results in salivation in the dog. That is the classical conditioning. And trial and error, in which we discussed about the Skinner box, where the cat learns to press the lever but just by chance, and then it concentrates its action on performing the same by pressing the lever, which ends with the reinforcement, that is food, or moving out of the cage, or in the case of pigeon, that is food when it gets the when the tray comes out with the corn or the food grains in it. So that is trial and error, or CR type 2, that is condition reflex type 2. Now these two condition reflexes, that is CR type 1 and CR type 2, together are termed as associative learning, because they are associated, one maybe with the reinforcement, reward, punishment, or with the associated with some condition, say for example the ringing of the bell. Some characteristics of associative learning: number one is contiguity. If a conditioned stimulus or a new response, such as liver pressing, is to become associated with the reinforcement, the two must occur close together. Now, contiguity is that they must occur close together. They must occur simultaneously. I mean, just within a fraction of a second. If that is not there, then this learning would not be helpful. Conditioning occurs most readily when the conditioned stimulus starts before the unconditional stimulus and goes on to overlap it. The second characteristic feature is repetition. All associative learning improve with repetition. If once you get the reward and after many repetitions you don't get the reward, then that behavior won't be shown, because after 10 15 times of repetition you don't get the reward. So it is improves with repetition, means the repetition is there and the reward or the reinforcement also is provided at the same within the same fraction of a second, that is contiguity is also there. Pavlov found the amount of saliva produced to the stimulus steadily increased with each trial, which was reinforced until it was at the same level as that given to the unconditioned stimulus. The rat learning a maze steadily reduces its errors with successive trials until it runs unhesitatingly through to the goal box where food is found. Generalization and discrimination. This is another characteristic. What does this mean? If Pavlov conditioned a dog to salivate when pure tone of say 1000 cycles was sounded, so that the ringing of the bell was 1000 cycles per second or per minute, it would also salivate but to a lesser extent when other tones were given. So that sound is of a specific frequency, so that results in salivation. That so another sound or a sound with a different tone also results in salivation, but to a lesser extent. So that is generalization, because that generalization is of the sound. Yes, there is sound, there is salivation, but discrimination, we would just talk next to this. It generalized its response to include stimuli similar to the conditioned one, and more similar they were, the more dog salivated. So more the closer the sound is, more the similar the sound is, the salivation would increase. The opposite process to generalization is discrimination. Discrimination is to differentiate between the two sounds. Dogs naturally discriminate to some extent, or they would salivate equally to all sounds. Otherwise, they would have salivated equally to all sounds. But their discrimination becomes refined after repeated trials when only one particular tone is followed by reward. We can accelerate discrimination if, as well as rewarding the right tone, we slightly punish the dog when it salivates to others. So that also can be done If a punishment is given, maybe slight, not to a high extent, that you, if you salivate at this wrong sound, you are punished. So it would salivate only when it is at the right tone. Reinforcement. The concept of reinforcement has been a central one for the learning theories of Hull and Skinner. Hull considered the reinforcement was essential for learning and that it consisted of a reduction in drive or need. A hungry animal reacts to a stimulus or performs an activity because in the past they have been associated with the reduction in its hunger. If this reward is removed, the learned response gradually extinguishes. Extinction. If we cease to reward a conditioned response, it becomes reduced and eventually disappears. It is much easier to extinguish classical conditioned reflexes than instrument conditioned reflexes, although we do not know why this should be so. Thank you.